Hi, and welcome to another episode of Piano TV. So today we're going to learn a piece by Bartok, who is a composer we've talked about before, because he's one of those rare composers that's written music for beginners, for intermediate players, and for advanced players. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. This particular piece is from his collection, The First Term at the Piano. And the one we're going to do today is number 8, because there's a focus on this fun little exercise called staccatos. So let's get started. When you see these funny little dots here above or below the notes, I kind of just erased that, but you see what I'm saying. It's called a staccato. So staccato basically means to do the exact opposite of a slur, the exact opposite of legato. It means to play really just like short and quick. I'll play a quick C pentascale in staccato so you can hear what they sound like. So here we go. Basically, it's the opposite of a slur or legato. It means to play the note short and choppy instead of holding it for its full value. So just to demonstrate, legato would sound like this. All the notes the sound is kind of like touching each other. They're like right squished beside each other. Where with staccato, you can kind of hear like there's a space between the sound, and you really want to keep it as short as you can. This is a really good exercise when you're first learning how to do staccato by just doing a C 5-finger scale, because you can just kind of start building the technique. You can do it hands separate in both hands, and then you can do hands together, and it's a good way to start building that control. I'll show you a couple ways that staccatos can go wrong, so hopefully you can avoid these problems at home. So one is hammering on the note, like. So staccato doesn't mean to attack the note. It's more about release, not attack. So instead of like kind of like wailing on those notes, think about just lifting fast. Does that hopefully that makes sense. Also watch that you aren't doing partial staccatos. Like maybe some of the notes are staccato, but others slur like this. So that's just lazy fingers. Just really watch that, when there's staccato markings, that you're observing all of them and not just some of them. Watch that you're also not trampolining, which is like wild bouncing when you do the staccatos. There are different ways to play staccato. So you can play it with your finger, like that, where it's just kind of your finger bouncing. You can play with your wrist. You can play it with your full arm. But none of them involve like these wild arm and hand and finger motions. So I generally, when I start teaching staccato, I teach it with just the fingers, because it keeps your hands closest to the keys, and that makes it less room to make a mistake. So if you're like flying wildly on the keys, you're probably going to hit some wrong notes just because your hand has to go so far away. Whereas try to keep your fingers close to the keys when you do staccato, and then you'll be less likely to make mistakes. Now, let's take a look at this Bartok piece here. So this is a great way to practice staccatos for a few reasons. And one, it's in a 5-finger position, so you don't have to leap your hands around. You can kind of just like plunk both of your hands in one spot and leave it there, and then you can focus on other things and pay more attention to these details. The first line is nice because it's all in unison. Both of the hands are doing the exact same notes in the exact same pattern, but the second line becomes more difficult as they start branching out and doing their own things. So over here you'll notice that the left hand's doing like this running ascending 8th note thing, and the right hand's doing this completely separate descending thing. So that makes it a little bit more of a challenge. But anyway, I'll play this so you can hear what it sounds like. Like I mentioned, the first line isn't too bad because all the slurs and staccatos are going together and happening at the same time. So really heed the music to make sure you're actually putting the staccatos in the right place. Now, the second line is difficult because there are parts where one hand slurs. Not only are the notes different and the directions different, but one hand is slurring and one hand is staccatoing, and, completely different pattern. But this is still doable for a beginner just because it is in that 5-finger position and the rhythm is fairly simple. So it's a really good way to start teaching yourself some hand independence for more difficult pieces later. See if you can master the slur and staccato pattern in the different hands in this exercise, because it's really going to come in handy for the next piece that we learn, which is just going to be kind of some of the same concepts, but just in a more difficult application. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, the sheet music can be found linked below in the description tab, and you can get practicing. All right, so have a good time with the music. I just feel like, I don't know, like, I don't know what dance that is.